Welcome back, everyone, to One Test Wonders. This time we are going to look at a one test wonder who, like the Barnsby Cooper, who I have done a video on, played in the very first test match, then known as the Great Combined Match. For it combined the New South Welshmen and the Victorians together against the touring English. For reference, this match was not given test status until later on, with test matches only becoming a part of the cricketing language after 1885. The man we are referring to today is one of the great players of early cricket, his family being a juggernaut of early Australian cricket, the Gregorys. And for 50 years they were a massive part of the Australian cricket culture. And our one test wonder is Ned Gregory. Because of how big the Gregorys were, we are going to have a quick look at how big of an influence the Gregorys were. Starting off with Ned's father, who was Edward Gregory, and is noted as a capable cricketer, and on Cricket Archives has one recorded match playing for the Australian club against the amateur club at Hyde Park Racecourse in 1832. I'm sure there were a lot more matches that Edward played, but due to records back then being very hard to find, if not non-existent anymore, we will probably never know the true extent of what Edward played. His brother was Dave Gregory, who captained Australia in that very first test match, the same one that Ned played in. Brother Arthur and Charles both played for New South Wales as well. But to further the power of the family, in the early days of Australian cricket, his nephew Jack Gregory played for Australia, and his last match was Don Bradman's first. I've done a quick scorecard on that match also. Jack was also Wisden Cricketer of the Year in 1922, just to prove even more how powerful the family was. His son-in-law also played Test cricket, Harry Donnan, with his son Charles playing for New South Wales, and is noted as being the first to score 300 in a day in first class in Australia, which is an amazing achievement. You don't see many of them doing that, considering only Don Bradman has done it for Australia in Test cricket, and his son Sydney played 58 matches for Australia, which was at the time a world record, and was Wisden Cricketer of the Year in 1897. So the family has multiple Wisden Cricketers of the Year. So it's fair to say that even though Ned only played one match, with him and his family being a massive part of Australian cricket history. But that is only part of his story, so let's continue. Ned was born on the 29th of May 1839 in Sydney, New South Wales, the same day as fellow Test teammate of Nat Thomas, and was one of only 4 who played that first Test match that was born in the colonies of Australia. He first has a recorded match playing for New South Wales 22 against the touring team of Heathfield Stevenson 11. It was common for a team to do that back then, due to the discrepancy of skill and for a way to make money for the touring team to play as many matches as possible. And to put it into context, some of the other teams that Stevenson's team played on the 1861-62 tour were Castlemaine 22 and Bathurst 22, as these were pre-test wickets which were known to be extremely poor, mostly made on grass. The tourists made 125 in the first innings, with Ned at the time aged 23 taking 2 catches and another 2 in the next time they fielded. Batting-wise, he made a duck and 4, as the New South Wales 22 made 127 and 66 to lose by 49 runs. That would not be the last time he saw a touring side before his test match. He is, in fact, one of the few players to play against the 1861-62 side, the 1863-64 side, the 1873-74 side, and the tour which led to the first test match in 1876-77, which were the first 4 tours that the English did to the land down under. As mentioned, Ned was part of a family that represented New South Wales, and he was no different. And with his first game for New South Wales in first class being against Victoria, as it was the inter-colony rival, and it was just the 8th time they had played each other. In that match, Ned scored 3 and 13, batting 11th in the second innings, with the might of New South Wales winning by 84 runs. I begrudgingly have to say, as a Victorian, that is a common theme of New South Wales beating Victoria. There is a reason why they say getting a baggy blue means you get a baggy green, because so many of Australian cricketers have come from New South Wales. Ned was also known to be a good batter on these pre-test wickets, which is nothing, and I mean nothing, like we're used to seeing in test matches these days, with most of them being makeshift wickets. Ned was known as the Lionheart for his unwillingness to give his wicket away. In one intercolonial match in 1875, he was struck by the ball under his eye after making 45, and it required him to leave the field and have stitches. When he returned, he made a career high of 65, when the team itself only made 116. In the second dig, New South Wales were faltering at 4 for 16, and with 2 black eyes, it was Ned Gregory's turn to enter the fray again. He had the wounds laced so he could see better, and made a fine 16, considering the situation, the 3rd highest of the team, which puts it in perspective. New South Wales won, no surprise there really, and the match was noted for being played on 4 pitches. I guess that kind of sums up the quality of the pitches in the early days, especially with them being makeshift.
Welcome to the main event.
The great combined match. The first test match, a match that has gone down in history and cricketing folklore for being recognised as the first test match. As a side note, it wasn't the first international cricket match, but just the first test match. The match was played on the 15th to the 19th of March, 1877, and Ned Gregory was 37 at the time of his hit debut. And of course, with this match being the first, there are a number of records mostly off first, with Charles Bannerman making 165, retired hurt. He still holds the record for the highest percentage of runs scored in a completed innings, which is amazing to think that something that happened in the first match still holds a record to this day. But of first, we obviously have Bannerman with making 100, but we also have the first score of 0. And who else but our one test wonder, Ned. In his first innings, coming in at 7, with 4,000 spectators watching, he almost immediately hit Lily White straight to Andrew Greenwood at long on. He put his name in the record book for scoring the first duck, but it definitely is not the last duck, for we still see them regularly in nearly every match played. By the time the Australians had to bat again, a lead was a lead, especially against the English. Before long, the colonists were in deep trouble at 5 for 35. A lead of 85. When Ned came out, he made a partnership with Billy Midwinter, the same guy who hit him under the eye 2 years earlier. The partnership was worth 23 runs, with Ned facing 4 overs of maidens before finally getting off his pair of zeros. The crowd cheered when he finally made his run. He ended up making 11 runs before getting out. The result was Australia won by 45 runs. After that game, Ned only played 2 more major games for his state. But that does not end his service to cricket, especially to New South Wales and the Sydney Cricket Ground. For Ned Gregory became the curator for the Sydney Cricket Ground for over 30 years. He is responsible for changing the pitch square to bully soil, which apparently provided a fast bouncy pitch, though some players of the time did disagree. The main reason for the change was that Gregory found the pitch used to remain damp, which wasn't great for uncovered pitches. Ned lived in a cottage between the 2 grounds of the SCG and fathered 8 children, with 2 sons and 2 daughters playing representative cricket. But besides fathering a future Test captain, his greatest contribution to cricket was the implementing of the first scoreboard at Sydney, which he designed and built and was used until 1905, and its legacy can still be seen on many scoreboards even to this day, because they use the same format of how to score. So it is fair to say that the One Test Wonder was a legend for what he did off the field for the game of cricket, and his family was a major contributor to the early days of Test cricket as a whole, and for the Australian cricket family, for they are truly pioneers and one of the first dynasty of cricket. Thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. I hope to see you next time. Enjoy the rest of your day.